Work hard.
First at 5 on your news leader, the shooting death of a beloved pastor and prominent leader in Memphis left plenty of people stunned, many asking, why would anyone kill Pastor Ricky Floyd?
In the early morning hours of March 12, 2025, a gunshot rang out on Kentucky Avenue in South Memphis. When police arrived at the scene outside Mama's Bar and Grill just before 1:30 a.m., they found a man lying dead in the street. The man who had dedicated his life to saving souls, mentoring young men, and building up his community had been shot down in the darkness, his life ending in the most tragic and unexpected way. It was a pastor.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Skurlock. WREG has viewed the video provided to us by the attorneys of the woman charged with shooting Floyd. We have carefully considered the weight of what's shown and the sensitivity to all involved in this tragedy. But we also believe it's an important part of the story and one you deserve to see.
The shooter was not a stranger or a random attacker. It was a woman who claimed she had just met Pastor Floyd that night. But social media told a very different story. People close to the situation claimed that the pastor and the lady had been involved in a relationship for years, a secret affair that had been hidden from his wife, his congregation, and his community. This is the chilling story of a beloved pastor whose double life caught up with him, a woman who claims self-defense after shooting him in the street, and a community left devastated by the loss of a man they had looked up to for decades. This is the tragic case of Pastor Ricky Floyd.
Phone video captured what appears to be some of the final moments of Pastor Floyd's life. It shows the Tahoe truck he is in putting on brakes, Pastor Floyd getting out, walking toward the person shooting the video as they yell to back up.
I'm backing back 3 times now. When I do that, you know, back the up. Back.
58-year-old Ricky Floyd was a pillar of the Memphis community, particularly in the Fraser neighborhood, where he had built his ministry and his life's work. Born and raised in Memphis, Ricky had not always been a Christian. He had converted to Christianity from Islam years earlier, joining Greater Imani Church, the Cathedral of Faith in Fraser, under the mentorship of Reverend Bill Adkins. Adkins became like a father figure to Ricky, who affectionately called him Pops. The transformation in Ricky's life was profound, and he dedicated himself completely to spreading the gospel and serving his community. Ricky Floyd was the senior lead pastor of Pursuit of God Transformation Center, a church whose mission was to restore the righteous, relevant reputation to the local congregation. But his work extended far beyond Sunday morning services. He was the founder of Salvation Revelation Ministries, Inc., a 501c3 nonprofit outreach ministry that impacted the Mid-South region through soul winning, family strengthening, wealth building, and leadership development programs. Pastor Floyd was also deeply involved in economic development and public safety initiatives in Memphis. He was the president of Eden Estates Apartments, a 52-unit complex in the Fraser community that provided affordable housing.
He had a little David. Yeah. Fear not, little flock. It is the Father's good pleasure. Yeah.
He founded the Husband Institute, Inc., a boys-to-men mentoring program designed to guide young men toward responsible manhood. He also created the School of Marriage Enhancement, a program dedicated to helping couples build stronger relationships. His community involvement was extensive. He served as curriculum coordinator and instructor for Manhood University, a program created by Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland. He sat on the board of directors for Fraser Community Schools and Families Matter, Inc., and served on the Methodist Hospital North Advisory Board.
God is about to show you he ain't forgotten.
He was also the interim president of the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board for the city of Memphis. Pastor Floyd partnered with numerous organizations, including Agape Child and Family Services, the Methodist Congregational Health Network, Memphis City Pastors Network, and many others. Those who knew Pastor Floyd described him as someone who left it all on the court, someone who gave everything he had to his ministry and his community.
He was always thinking about other people.
I love that. The
Yeah.
mayor actually calling him a servant of our city.
Certainly.
Reverend Earl Fisher, a fellow faith leader, spoke about Floyd's unconventional methods and willingness to reach people outside the traditional church setting. He emphasized that Floyd was not one of those pastors who limited his work to Sunday morning services or the four walls of his building. He was out in the community, actively involved in making Memphis a better place.
This is a man who is better known for his work in the community, probably than for his work from the pulpit. I mean,
And you talked about that. You all had known each other almost 2 decades.
Almost 2 decades.
Shelby County Commissioner Charlie Caswell, who had known Floyd for many years, described him as a beacon of hope in the Fraser community, someone who did so much for so many. Floyd worked with the underserved and underprivileged, looking for those who needed guidance, working with youth, and helping people start businesses. His ministry was complete and total on every level, addressing the needs of the whole person. But perhaps most importantly to Pastor Floyd was his role as a husband. He was married to Sheila Floyd, who served as co-pastor alongside him. Together, they co-founded Salvation Revelation Ministries and worked side by side for nearly 19 years. Pastor Floyd joked that people probably didn't think they would make it 19 days, and he himself admitted he didn't think they would make it that long at first. He acknowledged that the early years after the wedding were rough, but they had persevered. Ricky and Sheila Floyd were the parents of 3 adult children, 1 daughter-in-law and 2 granddaughters. They were sought throughout the United States and abroad to bring healing and instruction to marriages and families. Their ministry touched countless lives, and they were seen as a model couple who had overcome challenges to build a strong, lasting marriage. But beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect partnership, something else was brewing that would ultimately lead to tragedy.
Let's eat, Layla.
According to social media posts from people who claimed to be close to the situation, Pastor Floyd had been involved in a relationship with a woman named Samantha Marion for years. One person wrote that the pastor had been involved with Samantha for a long time, that she wasn't a secret to those who knew, and through her they learned that he was not at all what he seemed. They claimed that there had even been an incident where he had allegedly given her a black eye. These claims painted a picture very different from the image of the devoted husband and pastor that Floyd presented to the world. On the night of March 12, 2025, Pastor Ricky Floyd made a decision that would cost him his life. Instead of being at home with his wife or preparing for upcoming ministry work, he was at Mama's Bar and Grill on Kentucky Avenue in South Memphis.
Plenty of speculation surrounding the shooting of Pastor Ricky Floyd outside Mama's Bar and Kitchen March 12th. Phone video captured what appears to be some of the final moments of Pastor Floyd's life.
What brought him to that bar in the early morning hours remained unclear, but what happened once he arrived would be captured on surveillance cameras and witnessed by multiple people. According to court documents and witness statements, Pastor Floyd and Samantha Marion got into an argument inside the bar. The disagreement reportedly centered around a discussion about the Bible, though the exact nature of their dispute was not fully detailed in public records. What started as a verbal exchange inside the establishment quickly intensified, creating a tense atmosphere that other patrons couldn't help but notice. 2 other individuals, Keisha Smith and Stephen Newsom, were also involved in the confrontation with Pastor Floyd. As the argument grew more heated, Pastor Floyd eventually decided to leave the bar, but the conflict was far from over. Samantha Marion, along with Smith and Newsom, followed him outside, where they continued their discussion in the street. What none of them knew was that the situation was about to escalate to deadly violence. After a brief period outside, Pastor Floyd returned to the scene and he was different. According to witnesses, his demeanor had changed dramatically. He was now irate and aggressive toward all 3 of them, his anger visibly mounting.
I'm backing back 3 times now. When I do that, you know. Back the up. Back the up.
Then the video drops out.
Surveillance footage from the area would later provide crucial evidence about what happened next, capturing the sequence of events that led to the pastor's death. The video showed Pastor Floyd grabbing Samantha Marion's cell phone and throwing it forcefully to the ground. He then picked up a beer can and tossed it as well, his actions suggesting he was in a state of rage. After this display of aggression, Pastor Floyd got into his vehicle and began to drive away. For a moment, it seemed like the confrontation might be over, that everyone would go their separate ways and the night would end without further incident. But then something happened that would change everything. Samantha Marion walked out into the middle of the roadway and appeared to be recording Pastor Floyd's vehicle with her cell phone. Seeing this, Pastor Floyd stopped his car, got out, and began walking toward Marion. The confrontation was resuming, and this time it would turn deadly. A witness, later identified as Keisha Smith, stepped between the two, trying to create some distance and prevent the situation from escalating further, but her efforts would prove unsuccessful. The surveillance footage showed what happened next with chilling clarity. Marion began walking toward Pastor Floyd, who started backing away from her. As he moved backward, attempting to create distance between himself and Marion, he suddenly fell to the ground, and then he didn't get back up.
They say the video speaks for itself.
The video does not capture the gunfire that would have taken place probably maybe 3 or 4 seconds later, but it clearly shows him approaching her aggressively after being told several times to stop and that he should not be, walking up on her like that.
In that moment, a single gunshot had been fired, striking Pastor Floyd and ending his life instantly. Keisha Smith later told police that Marion had shot Pastor Floyd in the roadway. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a single cartridge casing on the ground near where the pastor had fallen. They also discovered Pastor Floyd's body with a gunshot wound, confirming that he had been killed by the single bullet. Inside Samantha Marion's vehicle, which was parked nearby, investigators found a black handgun in plain view, the weapon that had taken the pastor's life. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Samantha Marion called the police herself and told officers that she had shot Pastor Floyd. She remained at the scene and was immediately taken into custody and charged. At first, she was charged with voluntary manslaughter, a lesser charge that suggested the shooting may have occurred in the heat of passion without premeditation. She was held on $100,000 bond, which she posted in March, allowing her to be released from jail while awaiting trial. Marion's defense attorneys immediately began building their case. They claimed that she had acted in self-defense. They argued that Pastor Floyd was the aggressor, that he had thrown her phone in the beer can, that he had returned to confront her after initially leaving, and that she had feared for her life when she fired the shot. Then they made an outrageous claim. The attorneys also maintained that Samantha Marion and Pastor Floyd did not know each other before that night, that they were strangers who had simply gotten into an argument at a bar. But this claim directly contradicted what people in the community were saying on social media. Multiple individuals who claimed to know both Pastor Floyd and Samantha Marion stated that the two had been involved in a relationship for years. They suggested that the argument at the bar was not between strangers, but between two people who had a long and complicated history. However, without concrete evidence to support these claims, the official narrative remained that they had just met that night. As news of Pastor Floyd's death spread throughout Memphis, the community was devastated. Mayor Paul Young took to social media to express his grief, describing the pastor as a beloved leader, friend, mentor, and servant to the city. He emphasized that Pastor Floyd had dedicated his life to lifting up others and guiding countless souls with his wisdom. The mayor called the death a tremendous loss, not just for Floyd's family and congregation, but for all of Memphis. Pursuit of God Transformation Center, Pastor Floyd's church, posted a message to their congregation and the broader community, acknowledging the unwavering dedication their pastor had shown and the profound impact he had on the lives of those he touched. The church asked for patience and understanding as they made arrangements to honor his life and legacy, and requested that people give the family time to mourn. But as the community grieved, questions remained. What really happened that night at Mama's Bar and Grill? Was Samantha Marion truly acting in self-defense, or had she murdered Pastor Floyd in cold blood? And most importantly, what was the true nature of their relationship? The answers to these questions would determine whether Marion would spend years in prison or walk free. However, months after the initial charges were filed, the case took a significant turn. On August 26, 2025, a grand jury convened to review all the evidence in the case. After careful consideration of witness testimony, surveillance footage, and the circumstances surrounding Pastor Floyd's death, the grand jury made a decision that would dramatically increase the stakes for Samantha Marion. The grand jury indicted Marion on far more serious charges than the original voluntary manslaughter charge she had been facing. She was now charged with second-degree murder, employment of a firearm with the intent to commit a felony, and reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon. These upgraded charges reflected the prosecution's belief that Marion's actions that night went beyond a heat of passion killing and demonstrated a more deliberate intent to cause harm. The charge of second-degree murder carried significantly harsher penalties than voluntary manslaughter. If convicted, Marion would face decades in prison rather than the much lighter sentence that voluntary manslaughter would have brought. The additional charges of firearm employment and reckless endangerment added further weight to the case against her, indicating that prosecutors believed her actions had endangered not just Pastor Floyd, but potentially others who were present that night. Despite the severity of the new charges, Samantha Marion remained out of jail. She had posted the $100,000 bond back in March and was still free while awaiting trial, but the state was not satisfied with this arrangement. Prosecutors believed that given the upgraded charges and the seriousness of the crime, Marion's bond should be increased substantially or revoked entirely. What followed was a legal battle over whether Marion should remain free or be returned to custody. In November 2025, a bond hearing was held where the state formally requested that Marion's already posted bond be increased. Prosecutors argued that the new charges warranted a higher bond amount and that Marion posed a potential flight risk or danger to the community. However, the judge presiding over the hearing did not immediately grant the state's request. Instead, the judge decided to delay the decision, leaving Marion out on bond while the court considered the matter further. The decision to allow Marion to remain free while facing second-degree murder charges frustrated some members of the community, particularly those who had been close to Pastor Floyd. They felt that justice was moving too slowly and that someone accused of such a serious crime should not be walking the streets. But Marion's defense team maintained that their client had acted in self-defense and deserved to remain free until her trial, where they planned to prove her innocence. While the courtroom drama played out, the Memphis community worked to keep Pastor Floyd's memory alive and honor his contributions to the city. His widow, Pastor Sheila Floyd, became a vocal presence in preserving her husband's legacy. She continued leading Pursuit of God Transformation Center and maintained the various programs and initiatives that she and her husband had built together over nearly 2 decades. Just days before one of Marion's scheduled court appearances, the community came together for a special dedication ceremony. A shopping center along North Watkins was renamed Floyd Plaza in honor of what would have been Pastor Floyd's 59th birthday. The dedication took place on Wednesday, with dozens of community members, church leaders, and city officials in attendance. Pastor Sheila Floyd spoke at the dedication ceremony, her voice filled with emotion as she addressed the crowd. She emphasized that the shopping center stood as a testimony that her husband's vision had not died with him. She declared that his legacy lived on, that it continued to grow and multiply through the work that so many were carrying forward in his name. The renaming of the plaza was meant to ensure that future generations would remember Pastor Floyd's contributions to Memphis and the Fraser community. The dedication was a bittersweet moment for those who had known and loved Pastor Floyd. It celebrated his life and work while also serving as a painful reminder of the violent way his life had ended. For many in attendance, the ceremony brought both comfort and renewed grief, a chance to honor a man they had admired while confronting the reality that he was gone. But even as the community rallied around Pastor Floyd's memory, questions about the circumstances of his death remained unanswered. the conflicting narratives about his relationship with Samantha Marion continued to circulate. Social media posts from people claiming insider knowledge suggested a long-standing affair between Pastor and Marion, complete with allegations of past violence. Yet Marion's legal team insisted the two were strangers who had simply gotten into an argument at a bar. The truth about what really happened that night and what had led Pastor Floyd to Mama's Bar and Grill in the early morning hours might never be fully known. The surveillance footage showed the physical altercation, the throwing of the phone and beer can, and the moment Pastor Floyd fell to the ground after being shot. But it couldn't reveal the emotional dynamics, the history between the two individuals, or the motivations that drove their actions. What was clear was that a prominent community leader had lost his life, leaving behind a grieving widow, 3 adult children, 2 adult granddaughters, and an entire congregation and community that had depended on his leadership and guidance. Whether his death was the result of self-defense or murder would ultimately be decided by a jury, assuming the case went to trial and didn't end in a plea agreement. As of now, Samantha Marion remains free on bond, awaiting her day in court. The case continues to make its way through the legal system, with both sides preparing their arguments for what promises to be a highly publicized trial. The prosecution will argue that Marion murdered Pastor Floyd in cold blood, while the defense will maintain that she feared for her life and acted to protect herself from an aggressive man who had already demonstrated violent behavior by throwing her phone and advancing on her multiple times. The tragic death of 58-year-old Pastor Ricky Floyd serves as a sobering reminder that public personas don't always match private realities, and that one moment of violence can destroy decades of good work and leave countless people searching for answers that may never come. Let me know what you think in the comments section below.